Hello, and welcome to DGT Podcast, Languages and Technology, brought to you by the European Commission's Translation Department. I am Anna Holmén, and in this episode we will talk about why linguists are particularly well placed to work with AI. Of course, not all translators are thrilled about the rapid technological changes AI has brought about, but others see the opportunities coming with change. I know, it's a bit of a cliché, but as most clichés, there is truth in it. Just last week, we held a 3-day conference, Translating Europe Forum, and one of our keynote speakers, Bruno Herrmann, advised translators who are curious about AI to rebrand themselves language experts and work with tech people, for example, in the data management sector. Because AI quality depends on language expertise as much as on algorithms. Bruno actually had special praise for the European Commission and us in the Directorate-General for Translation for having a team dedicated to prompting, which, again, according to Bruno, puts us ahead of a number of private sector organizations. So, of course, I invited someone from that prompting team to speak to me today. I am joined by Miguel Debattista, AI business analyst and prompt engineer. Welcome, Miguel.
Thanks for the invitation, Anna. It's a pleasure.
Before we go into what your job title actually means, could you tell us your language story and how that took you to the European Commission?
Well, my background might be slightly unusual in that I was sort of born into languages and into the love for words. My father used to own and run a printing press and a publishing house in Malta, which is where I'm originally from, while my mother was a teacher with a very strong interest in literature, poetry, and the arts in general. In fact, she was also an author. So my siblings and I grew up surrounded by printing machinery and books, and my parents didn't even have to force us to read or study. It was just natural and fun for us, believe it or not. And at 12 years of age, I just couldn't understand why my classmates found poetry and literature boring or useless, while at that age, I actually already used to learn whole passages of Wordsworth's poems by heart, and I was also particularly fond of Blake, I remember. So it was an easy choice for me to choose to focus on literature for my university studies as well. And I did a master's degree in Italian literature and poetry. I also worked at the family publishing house, obviously, sometimes on the printing machines, at the printing press, other times in my office, translating books and reviewing manuscripts for publication. I was also doing manual proofreading at the time, the old school way. So I started off as a self-taught translator, and I eventually moved on to copywriting and to technical translations. For example, translation of legislative texts. That is when I became a freelance translator, basically. Demand for translation for literary texts was also strong at the time, and I used to love the challenge of translating history books, poetry, and anything related to literature. This was the mid-2000s, so just after Malta's accession to the EU, when translation courses weren't even available at the University of Malta. So I did all this while also teaching languages, mainly Maltese and Italian, part-time. Now, being a child of the late 70s, I witnessed the arrival of home computers firsthand. And I guess that explains my fascination with computer-assisted translation tools, automation, and AI. I will never forget the day I discovered the Trados Translator's Workbench, for example. It was a revelation, and it made me realize that I could actually take up translation as a full-time career. So when I found out that there was an opening as a translator at the Maltese department at the Commission, it seemed like a very good opportunity for me to further my experience and also live in a different country.
Oh, this is brilliant. You're such a good example because you're really deeply humanist. You started out, with the classics and also with the printing press, which is that was the first technological invention in history, of course, which took translation and writing, literature, books into the technological age and changed our world for forever. So it's an absolutely fantastic story to tell the story that we're telling today, languages and technology. So for your current job, AI business analyst and prompt engineer, let's start with the prompt engineering part. What does a prompt engineer actually do?
So as part of my current job at the prompt engineering team at Digity's AI-based services unit, I develop and test prompts for specific use cases made available by the Commission. I basically create written instructions for directing AI models to generate written output according to well-defined specifications. Prompts basically explain the task to an AI model in extensive detail, using natural language in a way that makes it generate exactly what you're looking for. So some might think of a prompt as being nothing more than a short instruction to an AI model, which is technically correct, as prompts can be short and also may be effective, depending on the context and on the user's needs. However, our prompting work is on another scale, as it involves developing elaborate prompts that are actually many pages in length. In fact, we ask AI models to process complex tasks, such as generating replies to parliamentary questions or to citizens' complaints, extracting information such as reporting obligations from legislative and non-legislative documents, and also generating briefings or other specific document types. And it stands to reason that complex tasks require more complex instructions, that is, more complex prompts. But it doesn't end there. Ensuring that your prompt is just right for a complex task requires iterative testing, tweaking, and trial and error. So basically, you find yourself running your prompt tens, if not hundreds of times, and tweaking it as you go along, while taking note of how the AI model reacts to your modifications. It's
And
actually
this reiteration, that is kind of the engineering aspect of the job, would you say that?
exactly, it's part of it, because you can't see if your prompt holds water, so to speak, unless you test it. So testing it is confirming that it is fit for purpose and that it works. Testing also helps to see how your prompt reacts with different parts of your prompts, because we use different techniques. We don't prompt in chunks. That is the older way of doing it. We actually use a multi-prompt or a chained approach, which I shall maybe touch upon later on. So there is structure in prompts and order in prompts. And depending on how we structure and order them, the AI model will react in different ways.
What does surprise people a little bit is the engineering part of prompt engineering. Maybe you would like to expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, some people actually think that the term engineering might be actually a bit pompous for what we do, you know? However, we like to think of prompt engineering as crafting instructions for AI to elicit a specific output. That's it, basically. So in prompt engineering, each part of every prompt is carefully thought out and tested, and is designed to have maximum leverage. Moreover, as I mentioned earlier, our prompts are usually thousands of words long, and their structures and the way they are ordered vary, depending on the use case. We also use what we call multi-chain prompting techniques, whereby prompts are divided into separate parts and chained or layered. And the outputs of these specific parts interact with other prompt sections, creating a set of cascading outputs, which are eventually collated together at the end and presented as final output. Maybe I can give a small example here. Now, I can ask an AI model to summarize a document through what we call a one-line throwaway prompt. That would be simple prompting. So I upload the document, give me a summary of the document, full stop, and you get a summary. Well and good if you're happy with that. However, the way we work, we are more specific and we ask an AI model, if we want a summary, to do the following steps. So one, summarize the document, I present it to you. Limit the summary to 300 words. Write in a style suitable for an audience of 15-year-olds. Write the summary in French. Divide it into different sections with appropriate headings. Follow a specific template, which I might upload to the model. I can ask the model to include any specific data available online that is relevant to the summary. I can ask it to check if all data in the uploaded document is actually correct. I can ask it to review its output before actually presenting it, and so on and so forth. So you can keep going on and on and on. You know, it's not just about writing a line. So yes, there is quite a difference between prompting and prompt engineering. I hope this small example helps to explain it better.
Okay, because what you do, you also build up task-based AI services, which is
Exactly.
different from just asking a general chatbot something which comes to your mind and you want to find out. So that's the big difference, that
E-
many,
exactly.
many, many pages behind your uh, prompt engineering.
Exactly. And also, when you use a task-specific service, you have consistency. You always get the same output. The only difference between one output and the other, I like to say, is, for example, when you cook a dish on Monday, you cook the same dish on Tuesday, and there's a slight variation, but it's still the same dish, you know? It's not a totally different dish. And this is one of the advantages that a task-specific service can do for you.
Okay, so you're talking to the machine, or how would you describe if you were at a dinner party, or I mean the classic is explain to a 10-year-old. How do you explain your job then? Do you have a pitch, a short pitch?
I basically tell people that I talk to AI through I write to AI. People like to call us the AI whisperers. So we whisper and we order it. We actually in prompting, it's very important to be assertive. For example, it's good to start your prompts with "you shall" or "you will," nearly biblical if you want. You know, like the Ten Commandments. You shall. That's a bit more of an older. That is my approach. Something which I like. You can also tell it you can also ask please if you want. Ask it something and say, would you please do this? But you don't need to ask, you don't need to be so polite with a robot. So
Oh, it doesn't help to say please. It's not a magic word.
it doesn't really help. It's extra noise, we call it, extra characters in your
Okay.
prompt.
I love AI whisperers. That's a very good. I mean, that's what you should have if you would have a little business card. I don't know. No one has business cards these days, but maybe you should get one just for that.
Yeah, actually, it's also very interesting to see how an AI model reacts to your instructions. And I actually see prompt engineering as a creative act. So very much like composing a piece of music or writing a poem. You don't stop until it sounds right. So patience is key, and as are also a relentless spirit and attitude, because you have to try and try until you get what you want.
And what about the mythical prompt? Is there when do you know when to stop? Do you feel I know for translators, for example, I mean they can go on for forever also and tweak and make the text perfect. Do you feel the same way to, no, I'll just try one thing more.
Actually, the focus shouldn't be on making sure that the prompt is perfect. It's you should focus on seeing that your output is perfect. So yes, I mean, where goes into the prompt, but it's very important, for example, not to repeat instructions in your prompt because that might reflect badly in your output. So you might get missing parts or actually repeated parts, or else have inconsistencies. So each time you upload a document for processing, you'll get different results. So you have to be concise and assertive at the same time.
Okay, thanks a lot. We'll come back to your best tips and tricks, but first, I'd like to talk about the first part of your job title, AI Business Analyst. What does that entail?
So the prompt engineering team also serves as an AI business analysis team. When colleagues from other DGs or other institutions get in touch with us, we set up meetings or what we like to call exchanges so as to listen to their AI related queries or ideas. So we listen and take the time to understand their workflows and needs so that we can develop our services in areas where AI can really make a difference. Our AI-based services help them generate and edit various types of documents efficiently while taking on board their specific requirements like structure, style, etc. So a good number of colleagues have already started thinking of developing their own prompts for automating parts of their workflows, while others are seeing the potential that AI has for helping them with their work. My teammates and I have been focusing on prompt engineering since the beginning of this year, and we have gained some good experience in the field. So we're always willing to share the knowledge we gathered during our work. I'll mention that we do not write prompts for others, but we're more than happy to share what we've learned along the way in connection with crafting prompts. We believe that the best way to learn prompt engineering is actually rolling up your sleeves and doing prompt engineering. You can read and research about it all you want. That will surely be useful, but you can't gain experience in the field unless you're willing to have a good go at it.
Okay, thank you. So you help colleagues within the European Commission, just in case we have listeners outside the EU bubble, DG, Directorate General, it's like a department within the European Commission, but you also support colleagues from other EU institutions.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, excellent. And I have to ask this. This is an interesting thing. So when you saw the vacancy notice for this job, how did you react?
Um, sometimes you see things in life and you just feel this attraction to something. So I found it extremely interesting. Prompt engineering, I found the fact that it was a new uh, job, a new post, a new career, extremely enticing. It was something I wanted to discover more of. When I looked at the literature, books on Amazon and everything, there was some things I could have used to, but there wasn't much. So this is a new field. So it's all, I don't know if it's a personal trait of mine, but I like involving myself in things that are new, that are cutting edge, and where you can actually give good contribution, especially when they're just starting, you know. This goes also together with my linguistic background and the love for technology, which I have had since I was a kid. So it's a marriage of that's the best of both worlds for me. So I said, why not?
So you really found yourself in the right place at the right time.
Exactly. I would say so, yes.
Okay, congratulations. And for those of us who just do a little bit of amateur prompting at home, would you have any professional tips on how we could become better at making those machines understand us?
I would say, number one, keep your prompts clear and sufficiently detailed. Ask the model to analyze first, then generate an answer. You can break down your prompts into separate logical steps by using layered or what we call multi-step prompts. So, for example, you start with a broad or foundational instruction, then you add more layers of detail, context, or constraints in follow-up prompts. This is like constructing a building floor by floor. So each layer refines or expands on the previous one. To get creative output, you can give precise instructions where it matters, but you can leave room for the model to surprise you. You can also ask the model to assume a persona. That I find that to be extremely helpful. For example, you can tell it to assume the persona of a legal expert specialized in maritime law, for example. You can provide the AI model with the right and relevant input. That's actually quite important because AI can't read minds yet. So it is quite essential to be aware that the quality of the output you receive is very much influenced by any input the model is given access to. Last 2 points I can give are, for example, giving the AI model templates to emulate when presenting its output. This saves time, and we found that it's also very effective. It saves you some prompting work as well. And one of the most essential things is to be aware or beware actually of hallucinations, which are false or misleading results. So basically always check your AI outputs for completeness and correctness. I like to say to err is human and to hallucinate is AI.
Oh, that's we should all have that, maybe on a sign above our laptop, because I find and I hear from other people as well that it's easy now when AI is everywhere and we start using it to be a little bit seduced. It looks so correct. So have you discussed this from a more philosophical point of view, how to kind of remind yourself that no, you have to check. You are the one who needs to judge the output.
Yeah, in fact, it's important to have a human in the loop, as we say. So having a human in the loop is checking the output to see if the AI has also given you what you wanted and if it is relevant, if it is correct and complete. But the human in the loop also starts at the beginning of the loop. And this is where I mentioned the input documents that you want to give the models. So you're at the beginning of the loop and also at the end of the loop. Yes, I mean, AI is powerful and many people think that it can take over many things in our lives. However, we are the masters. It is a tool. So like any other tool, it has to work under the supervision of a human. I find that very logical.
Yeah, I thought about that as well when you said, you give the orders, you shall. They thought, okay, yes, we're in the cockpit, the human in the
Exactly.
cockpit. Yeah.
And also I like the term, we're the pen holders.
Oh, that's
We
nice. Yeah, that goes back to the start of it.
also the end of it, because you can edit your output, and make it look as and sound as you want it to. After all, AI doesn't have to have the final word at all.
You mentioned before your colleagues, because you're not alone in the team. Well, wouldn't be much of a team if you were. How many are you?
Basically, we're a team of three: Madalina Marinku, Helen Dobby, and myself, plus our two trainees, Alisa Lang and Talia Vasileiadou. But it wouldn't be fair if I didn't also mention Christian Brasoveanu, who is our head of sector.
Okay, yes, we will certainly hear more from Christian in future episodes. For the trainees that you have, this must be an amazing opportunity for them. Did they, do they have a background in AI or rather languages?
Usually, these are people who are already interested in AI or have pursued similar studies at university, or who are thinking of furthering their experience in AI, and also in languages and linguistics in general. It's not only about AI. So there are people who, like me, gravitated to the commission because they're interested in translation and languages and writing and words in general. Yes.
Okay, excellent. This is all really fascinating. And I promise our audience that you will hear more about DGT's language and AI work in coming episodes. As I mentioned at the beginning, we just had our conference, Translating Europe Forum, with a range of discussions on translation, language expertise, AI, data, translation training, the language industry, etc., and so on. And you can watch the recorded sessions on our YouTube channel, Translating for Europe. So, any final comment in this discussion, Miguel?
Maybe I could address people who are interested in languages and linguistics in general. I mean, my I would say that in my case, I was born into the sector, as I mentioned earlier, and I really believe that linguist jobs are vocational. They're not for everybody, much in the same way that accountancy jobs, for example, are not for everybody. Certainly not for me. But those who love languages know what I'm talking about. And I encourage them to follow what they love and to follow what makes them tick. When I went to university and chose poetry and literature, my father said, "What are you doing?" Because there is no future with that. I said, "I'm happy doing that." And I just followed what I loved. And it brought me here. So I believe that following your heart and the things that you love actually, in the end, always get you to where you want to be. Now, especially today, when the reign of social media seems to be eating away at people's interest in books and reading in general, um, I think that language skills are a big plus for prompt engineering, as well as and clarity and detail are key if you want an AI model to respond in the best possible way. So I think people who are interested in languages and linguists, they maybe have a bit of more of an edge for entering this type of sector, or taking up this type of career. Plus, one has to really be willing to read and understand a lot of text along the way when doing what we do, uh, be it source documents, the prompts themselves, and obviously the outputs. So yes, love of languages helps a lot. I don't know if it is essential, I can't tell, but I think it is a big plus.
For us to be able to stay at the steering wheel, we need the skills. We need the language skills, the reading skills, and so on, to work with AI in the best way.
The skills and the patience that comes with all the skills as well. Yes, yes.
Excellent advice. Thank you very much. And thank you to our audience for listening to DGT Podcast, Languages and Technology. Stay in touch and share your thoughts and questions on Instagram or Facebook at Translating for Europe. Don't forget to subscribe in your preferred podcast app to stay updated on EU multilingualism and translation topics. Until next time.